If you like bacon and chicken and balsamic vinegar and potatoes, just straight up delicious food, then this dish is definitely one for you. This bacon balsamic chicken is really tasty and just an all around great meal prep dish as it's super easy to cook. So let's jump into how to make it. We'll start with our vegetables first, and we get the timing right. Everything should come out of the oven at the same time. You're welcome to cook with any vegetable you want, but I wanted a side of potatoes and green beans for this week. So what I have here are 1,125 grams of Yukon gold potatoes and 615 grams of green beans. Very simply, I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil, 2 teaspoons of salt, 2 teaspoons of black pepper, another 2 teaspoons of Italian seasoning, or you can simply use dried oregano, and then a pinch of red pepper flakes. We'll toss everything together here to make sure everything is coated evenly, and then we'll transfer this onto a baking sheet. And before I forget, I have 4 cloves of roughly chopped garlic, which I'll just scatter around the baking tray. And once this is mixed well, we'll put this in an oven set at 450 degrees Fahrenheit for about 30 to 45 minutes or so. Moving on to our chicken, I've got 835 grams of chicken breast, which I'm just going to toss in an oiled skillet here, set over medium-high heat. And I'm not flattening out these breasts because we're just getting some color here before we toss it in the oven to finish. For seasoning, it'll be the same thing as the vegetables. 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of black pepper, and then 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning. And then I'm just going to add in about 135 grams of diced bacon here, which I'll just scatter around the chicken to let sear as the chicken cooks. And once our chicken has gotten some color, we'll give it a flip and season the other side with the same seasonings: salt, black pepper, and Italian seasoning. And then we're going to toss in some liquids here shortly, but first I'm going to add about 10 sprigs or so of fresh thyme, as well as 4 cloves of smashed garlic that I'll just scatter around the pan and let sear for a second. The one thing I'll note here is that if you want some color on the other side of the chicken breast, don't add your liquids right away because the chicken will go from searing to boiling and you won't get any color. Sometimes people just toss everything in so quickly that only one side gets that seared texture. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just something to keep in mind if you're looking for color on both sides of the chicken breast. But for the liquids, we'll add in 100 grams of white wine, and any white wine is fine here. You don't have to pay up for an expensive one. We'll give this a second to let the alcohol evaporate, about 30 seconds to a minute or so. And then we'll add in 150 grams of chicken stock over the top as well, all of which will help deglaze the bottom of the pan and loosen up some of that fond. And then finally, we'll add in about 20 grams of balsamic glaze. And I'm specifically using the glaze here because I like that thick syrup-like texture it adds. I suppose you could use the traditional balsamic vinegar that's in more liquid form, but I would suggest using the glaze if you can find it. Now we'll make sure everything is covered and evenly distributed, and we'll toss this in an oven with our vegetables to finish cooking. Checking back in on our veggies here, our green beans finished around that 30-minute mark, while our potatoes still need another 15 minutes or so. What I'm going to do here is just remove the green beans now that they're done and put these in a separate bowl here, and then we'll set this off to the side for later. Once our chicken is done, we'll take it out, and then we'll set the chicken breast onto a cutting board. Now for the rest of this liquid here, I want to use it as a sauce. So very simply, I'm just going to pour it into a bowl here, and I'm going to try to strain it as best I can with my fork. Or you can simply use a strainer if you want it. I just don't like dirtying extra dishes. Alright, so we'll set this off to the side with the chicken that's resting, and now I want to take this leftover bacon and give it another sear for crispier texture. But while that's cooking, I'm going to remove the thyme and garlic from the pan here, just so it makes my life a little easier when I scrape the bacon out later. In other words, I don't want the thyme and the garlic in my serving containers. Alright, so once we're done here, we can now check back in on our potatoes. They look to be done here, so we're going to remove them and toss them in a bowl like our green beans. They'd finished around the 45 to 50 minute mark, but it can vary depending on your oven type. But once these are all in a bowl, we'll set these off to the side with everything else. Coming back to our chicken that's been resting for about 10 to 15 minutes or so, and it's not piping hot anymore. We need to cut it up into serving sizes here. Like I always mention, just cut it up however you want, whatever makes your meal prepping life easiest for you. I just like to slice my chicken into strips here, but either way, once we have it all cut up, we can now prep. We'll first start with our chicken breast, which I'm just going to try to nestle into one side of each container. Then we'll add in our vegetables. I'm going to go in with my potatoes first in the center and try to keep those as organized as best we can. And then lastly, we'll add in the green beans in that final tranche of the container, whatever vegetables you cooked. We'll top all of this off with some of that leftover bacon onto the chicken breast. And then finally, we'll spoon over some of that strained sauce from earlier as well. And you can use as little or as much as you would like. You're also welcome to add some fresh parsley over the top too, but I'm just going to hold off on that today. But with that, we are done, and you're now meal prep for the week. Here's the usual recipe and ingredient list as always, and of course all of this can be found on our website in the description below. But thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe. It really means a lot to us. So see you next week.